Hello, welcome to my channel Re-Vera. My name is Steve, and today I want to talk about how leftists are wrong. That's right. So I'm going to be explaining why I'm going back to the right. No, I'm kidding. Calm down. I'm not going back to the right because I'm not an idiot. But no, leftists are correct in general, mostly, about ideology. I think we do a very good job of, understanding politics and the effects of politics and what politics would, in a perfect world, lead to the maximizing welfare in society. But what leftists are wrong about, almost all of them, is how to win, how important it is to win, and how important it is to win quickly. They're wrong on strategy and they're wrong on sense of urgency. So a lot of leftists believe that progress is inevitable and that we will eventually, capitalism will fail and we'll live in a socialist utopia because that's the inevitable progress of man or some bullshit like that. That's bullshit. There is no law of nature that forces us towards progress. There just isn't. Progress has backslid before. If you lived in the Roman Empire, you probably thought history was an inevitable line of progress as well. But that empire fell, and there's dark ages over Europe, at least. Different civilizations rise and fall at different times. But no, it is not an inevitable line up. There's one thing pushing progress, and it is not some inevitable law of nature. It is us. And if we don't push hard enough, we start to backslide. Because what are we pushing against? We're not pushing against just other people. We're pushing against basic human nature. I think this is important to understand. Conservatives are conservative because they're embracing their nature. Humans are tribalistic. And humans like tradition, and humans, we have habits and all this kind of shit. And leftism largely is looking past that, understanding how our nature causes suffering, and through education teaching people how to move past that and building in policies to change incentives in society to drive us towards a better tomorrow. I need to stop saying so much. But it's not inevitable, first. And one of the reasons a lot of leftists think this is because I haven't personally read Marx, but I've been told that he argues that capitalism fails and inevitably leads to socialism because of the internal contradictions of capitalism. He didn't realize how effectively oligarchs would manipulate the system to keep it going for their own benefit, which they are doing, and they're doing well. And that's a bad thing. So the third thing I said was they're wrong about their sense of urgency. Because if you take one thing away from this video, I want you to take this away. Not only is progress not inevitable, if the left does not win in the next decade or two, if it doesn't start winning at the very least, it never will. Ever. Like, we're moving towards a time in history where socialism will be impossible. And that's what I want to talk about. We got a fucking deadline. So if you care about the left, if you care about workers' rights, if you care about making a better world for everybody, we got to get off our ass and take this shit serious. And I'm going to talk about how to take it serious and how the left can actually win, because I do believe it can in future videos. But today I just want to talk about this concept of there being a deadline. I do a lot of thinking about the future. I do a lot of gaming, kind of gaming out the future. And I do say so myself. I understand politics pretty well. I understand human nature pretty well. I've studied these things a long time. And if the left doesn't start winning, whoa, fucking rubber tub just flew out of the truck in front of me. That was fun. It was empty. Anyway, fun times. That'll derail your train of thought. If the left doesn't start winning, there's two main reasons it never will. And one part of the deadline is climate change. We all know about climate change. I'm not going to belabor that point here. I'd like to do a future video about how to talk about it, because you can make it excruciatingly simple so people see the problem. But the problem isn't anything that happens directly through climate change. It's that scarcer resources and more people migrating will stoke fear, and studies show fear makes people more conservative, and people want to defend their own, and borders and ethno-states and all this kind of conservative stuff just keeps ramping up because of the effects of that. Even though we're the ones that have the solutions to climate change, the psychology of it is going to help conservatives. And that's, assuming it doesn't extinct humanity, which I don't think it will, but it could. So that would end leftism too. No, the bigger thing is automation and AI. Because the strength of labor is what has always been the drive towards socialism. And countries that have gone more socialist or got some socialistic programs, it's been through labor power. It's been through things like general strikes and mass movements and even revolutions in some countries. But in a world where labor isn't necessary, it's also doesn't have any power. What's the point of a general strike when none of us are working anyway? It doesn't do anything. So let me explain the world I see. I'm going to skip a few steps and I'm going to come back to it. So this isn't, just to be clear, a decade or two from now. This is, if the left doesn't start winning, probably 50 to 200 years in the future. I do think history is going to inevitably lead to dystopia it's one of the common tropes in many future dystopias where there's this horrible, poor, Mad Max or like ghetto existence for everybody except for the ultra rich, which live in their own special little area that's all kept secure and kept entirely separate from everybody else. There's a lot of different types of dystopias that work like that in fiction. And I think that's for a reason. I think it inevitably leads that way because gross wealth cannot live next to gross poverty in security, because the people who are grossly poor and have nothing to lose are going to be a continual security threat. So eventually they will separate. There will be a giant wall policed by AI drones that shoot anybody that comes close to it, or they'll pick a hemisphere and they'll live there and everyone else have to live on the other one, but they'll still send drones and shit for resources and strip it. Basically, it'll be an imperialistic empire where they take everything. They'll still monitor you to make sure you're not building technology that can be a threat to them. That type of thing. It's going to be a separate society because it has to be. And that's a hell world. I mean, that's not a world socialism can exist in, because they will own the means of production and labor is not going to be a part of it. So in that future world, it's not like it would only be oligarchs. Obviously, there'd be doctors and housemaids and massage therapists and other things like that. Not because AI and automation couldn't do those things, but because oligarchs will want people in those positions. They'll want a human to talk to as a psychologist and therapist, and they'll feel like they're doing a good thing by, helping these poor people have a good life. But the people they're not going to be obligated towards the poor. So the steps I'm missing to get there, if we go back, let me go back all the way to what made me a conservative. Not made me a conservative, made me a leftist. Was back like 6 years ago when about 6 years ago when well, let me back up even farther. So I grew up conservative, as many of you know, and I always really respected and valued our country. I believed in it. I do believe in it. I believe in the Constitution, freedom. I was so amazed by what our founders did. I was a huge fan of revolutionary era of history, even it was through a conservative lens, but still. And so it was a complete shock to my worldview when I first saw the study that showed that the U.S. is an oligarchy, not a democracy. And to be clear, it's still a democracy in a technical way. This was just a study that analyzed which group of people, which either people or money had more impact on actual policy. And obviously money has a lot more impact on actual policy. Blew up my whole world. I was like, that's a huge fucking problem. Like, I care about the American experiment, care about democracy. I care about these things our forefathers fought and died for. What are we doing about this? And, I looked around. Conservatives had no answers for it. All their policies were making the problem worse. They want to cut taxes for the rich, which makes them richer, which makes them more powerful. That's going the wrong fucking way. We need to take power back for the people. Only the left was doing anything about that fundamental problem. And that is the fundamental problem of leftism. It is that oligarchs have the power and the people don't. That's that. Like, if you want to boil it down into one nugget, that's fucking it. Now, if you look at the growing wealth inequality, the chart looks like this. We're all kind of level, and they're going up. Jeff Bezos is worth $200 billion now. Wasn't it like a year ago he's $100 billion? $200 billion. You can't even wrap your mind around that number. You know what the average, if you divide 200 billion by the average US income, which I think is like 33,000 or something like that. I did the math the other day. You can check my math. If you'd paid nothing in taxes, spent no money, just worked at the average US income, it would take almost 6 million years to earn $200 billion. Humans didn't look like humans back then. We were apes that stood upright. Like, you can look at the evolutionary history of man. So, like, that's a total mindfuck. How can one person possibly earn so much? Obviously, they can't. How can one person spend that much? They can't on their own living conditions. It's so far past that. Even just $1 billion is past what any person can reasonably use to improve their standard of living. Past $1 billion, certainly, it is just power. And the more that separation happens, the harder it is for the left to win. And the trend is continuing. And I'm not just saying, look at the chart, the line goes up, therefore it must always go up. That's stupid. That's not how charts work. But the things causing that separation are only getting worse. They have so much power. I wanted to Google this, and I never did. But Google up how much money both parties spent on all elections in the United States in like 2016. And I guarantee that's less than the interest on Jeff Bezos' wealth. He could just spend the interest on his wealth and put more into politics than both parties did on all elections, from fucking county dog catcher on up. That's power. And the more power they have, the more impossible it is for us to take it back. 200 billion. That's what, like a fifth of the U.S. military annual budget? Like, if we just decided to, like, cancel all billionaires and they didn't like it and they pooled their resources, like, they could fund a bigger fucking military than us. Like, they could buy our military. That's real power. Money is power. And this is why the left has to start winning. If we start winning with, like, sock them policies and stuff a lot of you might think is mild and tame and doesn't go far enough, you know, AOC and Squad and just more progressive values. One thing they all agree on, even a lot of more mainstream Democrats, is raising taxes on the wealthy. That slows down the separation and gives us more time. If we don't slow down that separation, we won't be able to. Because here's the thing, AI and automation, when you own the means of production, which the wealthy do, the more productive that means of production is, the richer they get, the faster they get more rich. And AI and automation is driving that. Amazon is getting rich because the means of production here that they own is getting more efficient. They're putting brick and mortar stores out of business, and it's all happening electronically. When you buy stuff on Amazon, are you talking to a clerk? Is somebody helping you find stuff? Is anybody helping you out to the car? No, you're on your computer, which is automated. It's automation. You're placing an order. Most of the stuff all happens electronically. There's a few people that work at the warehouses, like slaves, for $15 an hour, and are driven with automated processes that gauge their efficiency. Like, the whole thing is so efficient, it's amazing. But that's not good for us. There's a lot less people working to get Jeff Bezos that $200 billion than there's ever been for anybody anywhere close to that rich. He's not reliant on labor in the same way that any other oligarch in past history has ever been. So we need to start winning, and we need to start winning soon, because as the separation keeps getting wider and wider, it's going to be harder and harder to win. Even if money is power no matter what. Like, even if we took the government and started passing laws to keep money out of politics, you can't stop the influence of money entirely. Like, they could still fund pundits. What would happen if you couldn't donate to political campaigns? You would just start seeing Ben Shapiro and Dave Rubin and Tim Pool and Steven Crowder ads everywhere. They would be all over all the platforms. And they would just be growing like crazy, because all of this billionaire money would be pushing astroturfing and pundits to get their perspectives out there. Because money is power. So if we need to start winning, and we need to start slowing that upper end rise up, so we have time to keep growing and actually institute leftism and actually make society a win for everybody. I don't want billionaires to, I'm not trying to destroy their lives. A lot of billionaires, not all of them, have contributed a lot to society. If somebody starts a business that's phenomenal and innovative and they're a great leader, leadership has value. Jeff Bezos is a great leader. He's innovative. He should probably have a really great life. He should probably be worth at least a few $100 million, not a few $100 billion. And that's why the left has to start winning. And I'm going to talk more about what that means. But the number one thing it means, just to get this in the video real quick, is winning hearts and minds. No strategy matters when you don't have enough people to really have any power. And we don't. We couldn't win a primary And in 2016, I think it was 7-8% of the population voted in the Democratic primary. And I know not all the states really got a fair crack at it, so the percentage of the population doesn't really matter as much this cycle. But we can't win a primary 7-8% vote in. That the left doesn't have the power to do much of anything right now. I mean, I don't care if you're thinking revolution, if you're thinking election. We need to build our power base by winning hearts and minds to our side. If we had just 5-10% of the population that was leftist and politically active, we could win primaries all over the country, and then we could get people into the bully pulpits, like, somebody like AOC that's a fighter, that claps back at people pushing the conservative narrative. If she was president, if she had an even bigger platform, people would love it. People loved FDR. They couldn't get him out of there. He won 4 times. The only reason it goes back and forth between Democrats and Republicans is because people hate both of them. Neither one of them represents the people. But if we had progressives in there that actually represented the people, actually fought for the people, actually clapped back at people lying about them, actually fought back, we would win more every election after that point. It wouldn't. We would, like when Trump won the midterms, the Democrats won Congress, right? When Obama won, the Republicans won the first midterms. Most presidents get 2 years at most of a united government to get shit done. But that's because everybody fucking hates all of them, because none of them represent us. I swear to you, if we had a progressive fighter in the bully pulpit, every 2 years we would have more and more progressives in the House and in Congress. And we could start actually winning. We could start slowing down the separation. We could change the momentum of history. The alternative is not fucking pretty. The alternative where Trump wins is not pretty. And I'll talk more about that. And I said in my last video, I'm going to be announcing a $500 debate challenge. I will be. I'm just going to say this right now. If you want to debate me, and if you can provide logical justification for voting for anybody except Biden, I will give you $500 of my own money. You can't do it. There are only 2 choices. We live in a 2-party system. There is fascism and the end of democracy, or there's shitty status quo, but we can keep fighting, we can keep winning hearts and minds, and we can fight in future elections, future primaries. Or you can choose not to choose. Those are the choices. Third parties in a 2-party system are choosing not to choose. They're politically LARPing. It's a beautiful fantasy being able to vote for somebody who represents your values. But it's a fantasy. It's such an attractive fantasy. People want to live action role play it by actually doing the third party thing. But it is live action role play. You're not doing anything. You never will. These people talk about, well, if we can only hit 5%, then we get federal funding. And what happens after you get federal funding? You're more likely to spoil it and give it to the fucking fascist who is trying to end democracy. He is attacking democracy every fucking way you can. When we don't have democracy anymore, the fuck good is the third party going to do? Nothing. We need to stop the bleeding. We need to get Trump out. Anyway, like I said, if you want to debate that, I'm more than happy to, because I'm perfectly confident that nobody can provide logical justification for not voting for Biden. It sucks, and all the arguments are feelings-based because of that. But that is the hell world we live in. So, anyway, I'll leave you with that. The left has to win, and the left has to start winning soon, or it never will. Something else I'd like to discuss in future videos is how we live and how we plan for a world in which the left doesn't win, because it might not. You can't put all your eggs in a basket of hoping that the government does shit for you, because we might not win the government. So I want to talk about planning for a future in which the left doesn't win as well. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. I'm planning on doing more content and exploring this whole arc in considerable more detail so we can figure out how we can win and live better lives moving forward. So thanks so much. Till next time.